Now, oh, yes, recording is in progress. Thank you, Alex. As you're populating the chat with your names and pronouns, your Zoom location, and whether, are you a first-time person applying? We'll also introduce ourselves. We have an amazing panel here today to try to answer as many questions as come up. We have some feedback. Yes, thank you. So I want our panelists to introduce themselves as well. Let's start with, we'll go Connie, John Stieber, Corey Thomas, and Alex. Just say hi and what your role is in this meeting today.
Sure, I'm Connie Hall, and I administer the application and support Emily in
Philadelphia in the morning because that was the earliest.
Oh, can I ask folks to please mute themselves?
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I suggest you want to use either speaker view or multi-speaker view. So my name is Connie Hall. I'm the Literary Services Manager at New Dramatists, and I'm the person on the other side of the admissions at newdramatists.org email. So please feel free to email me with your questions.
Great. Hi, I'm John Stieber. I am the lab director here at New Dramatists.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Corey Thomas, and I am a former resident on both sides. I have been on the committee that chooses the residents, and I have been a person who has applied and become a resident.
She is also a former board member, so that she's been very integral in the governance and artistic work of New Dramatists, quite beloved. And Alex.
Hey friends, this is the voice of Alex Church Gonzalez coming to you live from New Dramatists. I'm mostly monitoring the chat to make sure that any questions don't slip through the cracks, and I sent you the email that got you here today, so thanks for that.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, panelists, for being here and for all your wisdom, and everyone else who's here and interested in what we're doing. We began holding these sessions years ago to explain and demystify the admissions process and field questions you may have about the residency itself. This is really your session. And we'll do our best to work dynamically with what you're interested in knowing, while also making sure we cover the adjustments and changes we've made to the application process for this year. I think, like our residency, our admissions process is dynamic. We learn a lot every year, and then make tweaks and adjustments accordingly. As I said, the people comprising our panel today will be able to address most questions, but if something comes up that we can't, we'll investigate further and get back to you with a response as soon as possible. I want to give a quick historical overview of what New Dramatists is, because it really is the kind of guiding principle and sort of a value statement about what we do and how we do it. And then we'll go into more sort of guidelines and residency and any kind of artistic development questions. So New Dramatists was founded in 1949 by a playwright, Michaela O'Hara, who, in association with Broadway luminaries at the time, Howard Lindsay, Richard Rogers, Russell Crouse, Oscar Hammerstein II, John Golden, Moss Hart, Maxwell Anderson, John Wharton, Robert E. Sherwood, and Elmer Rice. The luminaries really responded to Michaela's vision of a company of playwrights, each of whom was working on their own plays, but in the company of other playwrights from whom they could learn about their craft among peers, share feedback and resources. So this was at a time when there were no play or playwright development organizations or centers. There were no MFA programs or many options for playwrights beyond Broadway. So how did playwrights learn about the craft I mean, they learned about it from the sort of marketplace, right, which was the interest of the Broadway producer. But what about the art and the craft of it? And that really was, I think her vision was to learn about that from peers. Much has changed since then, but our mission is still rooted in the founding vision that playwrights are each other's greatest resource. And as such, New Dramatists offers resources, time, space, some financial support while you're doing work on your plays, a company of peer playwrights, and an extended artistic community, which continues to expand all the time. And the playwright company members take those resources and apply them in service of their individual development experiments and creative inquiries. So each person directs their own development through the course of their 7 years, but you're doing it in a company of playwrights. And both things, we respond to the individual. We meet each playwright where they are when they arrive and support the individual trajectory, as well as respond to the collective interests of the company. Those are two very important and interlocked, I guess, components of what you're applying for, essentially. Like our development resources and programming, our admissions process has also evolved over time. And as I said earlier, or referenced earlier, it's in response to feedback from applicants, committee members, resident playwrights, the organization, and of course, technology. This is a responsive organization, and I think as such wants to respond to where we are at any given time in the course of these 77 years. So while this window is open, which you will send your applications materials for in application of residency, Connie and I are building a 7-person committee, typically combining 3 current resident playwrights, 2 alum, and 2 outside professionals. Our goal is to create as a diverse panel representing a really broad readership, within 7 people. We want as much diversity as we can in the individuals and then collectively, and make sure that people are reading as broadly as possible. And the committee, it's important to mention, changes completely every single year. And by extension, so does the definition of what is New Dramatists. It's a big undertaking and responsibility for the committee. In addition to reading and evaluating the submissions of the playwrights, they're also defining what New Dramatist is to them. There is no imposed organizational criteria for what a New Dramatist playwright is or should be. It's really divined from within the work that happens among the committee members. And again, that those individuals change completely every single year. I would also add, because this comes up a lot, and I know that this is a question that has already come up that we've captured, the new in New Dramatists is a spirit. It's open to definition and not at all career status, right? So new is not young, new is not early career. It's a spirit that moves you to make your work, and that can happen at any time. New Dramatist is for any playwright for whom 7 years of support is meaningful in the pursuit of your creative, artistic, and career aspirations. Okay? Doesn't mean young, doesn't mean early career. It means, like, what are you moved by? That's the new that we're, I think, chasing or divining or responding to. The goal of the committee is to select by consensus an incoming group of 5 playwrights this year to whom New Dramatist offers time and space to do their work for 7 years. The staff does not participate in decision-making. Connie and my job and Alex's job is to facilitate a process for the committee to make their decisions. So, we sit on our hands, we keep our mouths shut, we ask good questions, and we really help support that committee who is doing the heavy lifting. And it's a big lift for 10 months. It's wonderful work, and I can think it's quite rewarding, and certainly Corey can contradict me if she likes, but it's it's really something to live in the worlds of so many people and to respond to that work and to discuss that work and then bring in a new cohort every year. The residencies are investments, they're not rewards. The panelists are selecting writers, not plays. They use the submitted plays to intuit who the writer is behind those plays to the best of their ability, right? They're intuiting, what is this artist up to? What is their thesis? What is their passion? And that's what they're responding to. Strength of feeling about the work is what drives the process, not awards, not accolades, not where you went to graduate school or didn't go to graduate school. It's really the feeling about the work that they're reading and discussing. It's a very thoughtful, deliberated, and considerate process. And of course, a difficult one, as there are always more talented playwrights than we can support at any given time. And again, because so many of the writers, the people on the panel are writers and who have come through here, I mean, inevitably, I will just say anecdotally, someone always says at some point in the process, I have no idea how I got into New Dramatists. It's difficult. And that's why we also encourage people to reapply, because I think, and Connie and I say this to many people, you never know when you're going to meet your committee, right? And because that committee changes every year, they don't know how many times you applied. They're meeting your work, you're meeting them for the first time. And that's what, that's, I think, encouraging anyway, is that you just never know when you're going to meet your committee. So that's why we encourage people to reapply, because it changes so much. The people change and how they read changes. I'm going to pause there before moving on. Are there any questions at this moment about anything I said, or any panelists would you like to weigh in? I saw Nick's hand go up. Go ahead, Nick.
Hello. I'm excited to apply. Just one question for now. Is there a second phase to the application process during which the panel requests a project proposal or a residency proposal?
That's an interesting question. Go ahead. Somebody else is speaking? Okay. Connie, do you want to take that?
Sure. Yes, we eliminated the requirement to submit an artist statement at the like during the initial submission a couple of years ago, and what we do now is, if you advance to the final round, we reach out to you with some prompts and ask you to respond at that time, basically with questions related to how you would participate in a community of writers. And what's wonderful about the adjustment is that the panelists actually have the opportunity to give a little feedback on what they would like to hear from the finalists. At this point in the process, there's about 25 typically. You know, it's not set, so you know that's but that is common. And you know, at this point in the process, all panelists have read all of your plays. So all finalist plays, I should say, have read both the A and B plays, which I'll get into later as I step through the application. But just as a preface to say, at this point, they've already gotten to know you through your plays. And so this is a moment where they get to hear from you directly.
Thanks.
Anything else, Emily, that I...
No, I guess I would just say it's not, so it's kind of one ongoing process, Nick. I don't know if this is more clarifying, but in terms of everyone submits the 2 plays, which Connie's going to get into, a bio, and that's it in the initial stage. And then the finalists are asked to submit a statement in response to what the committee is interested in hearing at that point. Does that help, Nick? We're good?
Thanks so much. Yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Were there other questions at this point, or should we just go ahead and get into, or any other comments, Corey, if anything I said, anything you want to add, or?
No, I'll cover it when I speak.
Okay, got you. Thank you. Is it Alicia? I see a hand.
Yes, I tried to put it in the chat, but can you just go back to what you were saying earlier about what a new playwright is? You said it's not an early career playwright, it's not an emerging playwright, but can you just clarify one more time what it actually is?
Sure. I'm really responding to many questions that we get about mostly about age. Like, is there an age cutoff, or is New Dramatists program for young writers or early career writers only? They think of new as being a status of your career, and what I'm countering with is that it's more like a spirit. It's a kind of spirit with which you write and create. Really, New Dramatists is for any playwright of any age for whom 7 years of support is meaningful to what your creative ambitions and aspirations. So I think it's open to any writer who's writing plays and who has the materials to submit. You would be considered for a residency. Is that helpful?
Very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Monica, is there that's a great question. The bio that is asked to be submitted is really a reference point. It is not about decision making. No, it is. It's rarely, it's not actually, it's something we keep on hand as a reference point. If the committee is like, hey, I think I worked with that writer at this residency program, or I may have gone to school with them, or it's kind of it helps confirm sometimes what somebody might suspect, not suspect, that's not the right word, but might intuit about the writer whose work they're reading, as opposed, so it's not a decision-making factor, it's more like a reference point. And it's only brought out when those questions come up. Is that helpful, Monica? Did I cover that enough? Okay, great. Thank you. Connie, let's go ahead. Let's talk about the materials. I know there are some other questions and we will get to those too, but let's cover this material. And then we'll have, again, we want to make sure that your questions are being asked, because as I said, this is really for you.
Yes, I can see there's a few that just came in, but I'll just, what I'm going to do is, hi, everybody. It's so great to have you all here. I'm going to step through the information that's posted on our website. So if you want to follow along here, it's at newdramatists.org/admissions. That's really all the information we have that's public facing is all right there. And that is where the button will be placed at noon on Monday to be able to begin your application. It will be there on that page. So we'll be holding an open submissions window opening on Monday, July 27th at noon, and it will stay open until a maximum of 700 submissions is reached. If that is not reached before midnight on August 10th, then the window will close automatically at that time. So it's really a window. But if 700 applications are received first, the window will close. This cycle, New Dramatists will recommend to the panel that they bring in a group of no more than 5 incoming writers. This is really just to manage the overall size of the resident company to ensure that we are providing everyone with robust support. And that is something that fluctuates year to year and is something that we determine in consultation with our Writers Executive Committee. Eligibility to apply for New Dramatists is wide open. Any US-based playwright who can meet the submission requirements of 2 plays and a bio is eligible to apply. I'm sorry, I just got distracted by the chat. The New Dramatists does not have a set criteria for what makes a good play or what makes a good playwright. As Emily mentioned earlier, there's really no restriction in terms of whether you're an early career or someone right at the height of their career. So wide open criteria. Therefore, we don't really have a lot of suggestions for you in terms of what genre is best or what makes a good play. It's really what do you feel is showing you your best, what is your best work, and you are the authority on what your best work is. In terms of the residency requirements, these are based on pragmatics. When you become a resident playwright at New Dramatists, you are compensated as an employee for the time that you are working on projects with us. And so for that reason, we need you to be able to have I-9 form verification documents. So it's for US based playwrights. Playwrights outside the tri-state area must have the availability to spend time in New York and utilize the resources. We, again, in consultation with our Writers Executive Committee, we aim to maintain a ratio of 70% local and 30% national members. And this is something that comes up typically at the very end of the final meeting, where we look at the composition of the playwright company as a whole. As I mentioned before, we're looking to bring in just 5 writers, but they would not be 5 national writers. And again, this is we are not able to provide reimbursement for travel and housing just unilaterally. That's dependent on the status of dedicated funding for that. So it's something that would be worked out with each resident. Okay, so moving on to the application form itself. It's a very simple 7-step application. Before you begin, please download the guidelines for resident company and read those carefully so that you understand what it is you're applying for. New Dramatists is a pretty unique place, so or I should say unique group of human beings. So please do look at that first before you rush the application on Monday. Please do try to gather the documents ahead of time. This is your work will probably be saved in a browser, but it's really in your best interest to have all the documents available to upload in one session. The button will be placed at, like I said, at noon on Monday. And the steps of the application are really, you're just going to begin the application with a button on this page. You will confirm your eligibility as a US-based playwright. You'll enter your contact information. And this is the only new question on the form this year is how did you hear about this opportunity? And really what we're trying to understand, qualitatively what is behind the numbers we're seeing. We have instituted this cap of 700 applications because we received 800 last year, which is just about twice what we have received in prior years. And we have learned where our maximum is, and that was exceeding really what we could handle. We have an incredible, wonderful, generous group of alumni who read alongside with panelists during the initial round, but just it comes down to basically weeks in the year and the volunteer labor that we have to process the application. So part of that question of how did you hear about this opportunities, we're just trying to understand what the numbers are. Then you will, the next step in the application is to upload your bio resume or resume. And then the next step is to upload blind copies of 2 original full-length works. Please ensure that your name is off of these documents. This is really, we cannot circulate your work if it is not anonymous. And this is not something that I will reach out to you and request replacements for. They just simply won't be circulated. Please, you'll notice a bunch of check marks here. Make sure that you're, try to remove your name from the document properties. Shouldn't be in the file names. Please remove hyperlinks. Do not include production or development histories. Basically, anything that really it can lead panelists down a wormhole to learn who you are. I'll go ahead and read through these. Yeah. Please include a character list. Do include the name of the play on the script. Do number your scripts. Please do include a character list. These are things that really help the readers remember your work. They are reading, the panelists are reading 160 plays potentially in this process. So just to help them recall, help them track and recall. Put page numbers on, character list, put the name of the play on the document. Just don't put your own name on it. You can provide music samples. So that would be the 6th step if you have audio samples to include. And then the last step is just to submit the application. Okay, so we've got a lot of questions, I think, here.
And I'm trying to answer them as I is going through. I'm sorry if that's distracting to you.
Oh, it's not.
Just trying to capture some.
Oh, great. Oh, okay. So do I need to, I'll just keep talking through the selection process here then?
I think so. Is there, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because then we'll pause again. Friends, we'll pause when she gets through everything for any kinds of, if you want to verbalize questions, and then we can hear from Connie and John, and just keep the conversation going.
Okay. Super.
Thank you.
So as Emily mentioned, we have a 7-person panel comprised of New Dramatists current residents, alumni, and outside professionals. This panel changes completely every year. How that impacts submissions is you're welcome to submit the same play in subsequent years. It will be read by different people. Panelists read, as I mentioned, approximately 160 plays. They meet 3 times between January and June and winnow the pool through discussion through a consensus-based process. You submit 2 full-length works and designate the A play and a B play. The A plays are read during the initial round. As they advance through the process, the B plays are read. In some cases, B plays are also read in the initial round. So you do need to take your name off of both plays. So reading is blind through the first round, and then names are disclosed to the panelists, the first meeting agenda. Just in addition, each resident playwright also has the option to recommend up to 2 applicants who are guaranteed to have both their A and B plays read during different panelists during that first round. So that is really the only degree to which that impacts their circulation. It doesn't impact their status, and their identity is not disclosed to the readers. They meet 3 times between January and June. And again, this year they will select 5 playwrights for residency. And we will send you status notifications on a rolling basis. Um, okay, I think we can see the checklist of things not to submit. We already spoke about how the artistic statements are only requested of finalists. So I think that I'm at a stopping place here. And I think we have lots of questions now, right?
Thank you, Connie. Are there
Yeah.
questions?
Yes, hello, hi. Thank you all for doing this. I just had a question about theater for young audiences and New Dramatist history with supporting that kind of work. If that is a thing that I think there's just sometimes stigma around that kind of work. So knowing that the panelists are open to it, or if that is something actively, not actively, but something that is not often submitted, so therefore not often considered.
Yes, thank you, Doug, for that question. And I'm sorry, I saw your question and I was going to get back to it, but I'm glad you just asked it in this company. I think that, and Corey, you might have something to say about this too. Like really, I think the committee, once you're a resident writer, you work on what you want to work on. And if that's plays or theater for young audiences, or someone else asked about musicals, yes, by all means, that we would support you in those endeavors. I don't think there's not a kind of either eligibility issue around what you're submitting. What the committee is looking for are sparks, right? They're looking for authenticity, a voice and passion. So I think that can come in any form. So I don't think there's I don't know that anyone's ever gotten in from writing theater for young audiences, but people have worked on plays while they're in residency for young audiences. Musicals, Sarah Hammond was one of them. That's the name that popped to my head. I don't know, Corey, do you have anything to add? And I see your hand, Alicia, too.
Yeah, I think that just submit the plays you feel the strongest about. I don't think it matters what they are, because I'll talk more about how we read them, but we just read them, as plays. And so the way they hit you is, it doesn't really matter, I don't think.
Thank you, Corey. Doug, are we good?
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. Alicia, your hand's up, and then I see some questions in the chat that we can address as well. Go ahead, Alicia.
Thank you. I see in the chat that a full-length play constitutes an evening of evening performance, but some applications do specify it must not be lesser than a certain number and no more than a certain number of pages for the panel to read. Is there a minimum or maximum requirement on the number of pages for my full-length play? Okay, I see you shaking it.
No. I mean, I think there are recommendations, but again, just in terms, keep in mind that the panels are reading, 200 plays over time. But I think,
and they read the entire play.
They do. That is a question. Yes, someone asked if, yes, they do read that is one guiding principle, is that we ask that people do read cover to cover, because where that spark of something comes can be really at any point in the play. And I think it's, you've taken the time to submit. I want us to honor that as well.
I think I heard Connie say that you must label one play your play A and the other your play B. Is there a preference in the order in which that we should put our materials? Because I don't want to discourage somebody from one play from reading my second play, or how does that work?
Corey, do you want to take that one? And/or Connie, go for it. Connie, Corey.
Yeah, I would say, the one that you feel the strongest and most passionate about, I would make the A play, because that's the first play that we're going to read without the names or anything, which I think is the strongest part of the selection committee. You read plays and you don't know who's written them. I mean, unless you recognize it from something you've seen. But I mean, otherwise, you don't know who's written the play. And so it's really just the power of the play that's going to get to you. So I would say use that as your A play, because there are eliminations that happen after that round. And that's where it becomes very surprising sometimes when you find out who you've eliminated because you didn't know who wrote it. I think the strongest part of being the selection committee, actually, and the fairest part of the process for the playwright.
Understood. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
You. And I think just because I see Hector's question here on Amaya's iPhone, that yeah, everyone is given equal consideration. I mean, that's because the first round of reading is blind. We don't know the status or the name of the writer. They're just, again, reading for that strength of feeling, right, Corey? That's
That's
yeah.
it.
And yes, Thelma, yes, the readers read the entire play.
And there's vigorous discussion about what we've read with the group.
Thank you. Yeah. And yes, Corinne Keithley Sires does write for some YA theater. She writes for, I mean, you name it, she writes for it. So again, that she's a great example of someone who was supported in their totality of their creative endeavors. Like, you know, not necessarily a conventional path, but conventional path is fine too. It's strength of feeling that drives the process. I can't see other hands, so
It's Reginald Jackson.
Okay, go for it, Corey, or Reginald. Go ahead, Reginald.
I can't hear you. You seem to be on mute, maybe?
Me now?
Yes.
Okay. One of the plays I wanted to submit has a plot that's similar to another play, but it is not an adaptation of that play. Should I put that on the title page? 'Cause I don't want people to judge it based on a different play, as though it was an adaptation. It's an original.
Is it an adaptation or it's not an adaptation?
It's not an adaptation.
But you feel like people would read it and think it was similar?
I've gotten reviews where they've compared it to Sorcerer's No Exit.
Oh.
Because they're in hell. There's 3 people in hell.
Okay.
You could, oh, go ahead, Corey.
No, I was going to say I would still just submit it and, you know, because people will just read it, you know, on its own worth, I think, you know.
And if
With
you
the
feel,
annotation or without the annotation?
I might just say, if you feel more comfortable, it could just say whatever the title is, an original play. I mean, don't put your name on it yet, you know, that can be something that is, you know, disclosed later, but that who you are as the writer. But I think at first, if you have the title and it says an original play, I think it'll be read on its own terms, as Corey was saying.
Thank you.
Isaac. Hi, Isaac.
Hi, good to see you all. Thank you so much for hosting this as always and for your brilliance. I have a question for the panel of playwrights in particular around discernment. So, you know, obviously we all submit plays to a million different things. And as someone who also serves on various committees, I understand intimately the relationship with a play is quite taste driven, right? It's pretty subjective if we're speaking frankly. And so rather than submitting plays that we think a panel might like, obviously, we want to choose the 2 that feel, however, I guess, best demonstrates our voice or the things that we're passionate about. But just from a writer to writer, I'd love to hear, like, what is your process of discernment in choosing what you submit? I'd love to know how you go about that. Help me.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I want to hand it over to Corey to answer, but I will also say you can't game the system. And I think you are absolutely on the right path, that you've got to go with what your own passion and fire. But go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when I read a play, and I'll say that for this process, because New Dramatists means so much to me, when I was on the selection committee, it meant a lot to me to be in the space of choosing people to come in to have this opportunity that I had had. So I took it very seriously. And I can tell you that the whole group of us who were in that committee did also. I mean, every time we had to say no to somebody, it was actually heartbreaking for each one of us, really. So, so it's a difficult process. I mean, when I read a play, I think I just read it. And I think the easier it is to read and the less stopping and having to go back and did I get that? And what is this? I mean, I think it's that. It's the smoother the read usually for me that makes it a more easy process and that I kind of like feel like, phew, okay, I understood what that was. But I mean, there's so many different kinds of plays because sometimes it's just the excitement of the way the words are put together or the characters are so bold. And I don't think there's a rule. I mean, that's the thing. I don't think there is a rule. And I think if you look at each season of playwrights that are chosen, they're usually very diverse and different. So it's not like a style that we look for. But I do think that, and sometimes, I mean, there are vigorous discussions because these two people love this play and these two prefer this one that so there's that. And that's when we like, I think those are the ones that are always the ones that we have the most interesting discussions over, where you have like a slightly mixed opinion. So yeah,
I think what I meant, Corey, and if you just don't mind indulging me for half a second more, is when you're submitting your place for something, how do you choose what you're submitting?
I think it's the one that I think is probably the most easy to read for somebody because, like I said, that's what I appreciate when I play. So I think the one that I think is the easiest for someone to get to grasp, and that I think represents what it is I'm trying to say and do as a writer. That is where I am right now. This is representing me and what I'm trying to say and how I'm trying to say it.
That's so helpful. Thank you, Corey. I appreciate you. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you, Corey.
If I can
Thank
just
you.
jump in for a quick second.
Mhm.
I was on the committee, this was years ago, just before I was on staff. And I was then invited onto staff, but I'd already read 40 plays. And so I was cycled out, but they brought in someone else to replace me, but I was cycled out. But one of the things that I noticed in the conversation was, if you recall, Emily said that it's 3 resident writers and 2 alums. So you have at least 5 playwrights on the committee. And the playwrights take this very, very seriously. And they're also very protective of all the writers who are actually applying. And so that's the thing. I just feel like really you should put, I mean, what Corey was said is exactly right. And whatever it is that you're really most passionate about, because I feel like having that many writers on the panel, most of the panel is writers, is playwrights. They read differently. They read differently from directors, or they read differently from dramaturgs. They read differently from designers or choreographers. And you should really feel very safe. I feel like sending your plays to New Dramatists and having those panelists read them, you're in really great hands.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And I see you, Anita, in Hector's hands, but I also just want to thank you for your question, Isaac. And I want to just take an opportunity to, to say a couple of things. No one is actively rejected, right? People are released because, again, that strength of feeling drives a process that it's almost like, if you see the ducks in the water, right? It's like there's the leader and then I don't know if that's a good analogy.
Great analogy.
But things kind of move to the background, right?
Yes.
Again, and so it's no one's actively rejected. Like I that's why we say release letters, not rejection letters, because it does suggest something more accurate to the process. I also want to say that there's no way to ask people not to read without their subjectivities, right? I think, and there are implicit biases or unseen biases. So I also want to just acknowledge that. But I think what we try to mitigate that with is having a consensus-based, a discussion and consensus-based process. And to Corey said so eloquently, there is really, really rigorous discussion about work and how, and so in some ways the consensus becomes as much about a shared values than individuals, because again, there are so many good writers that we're fielding every year, and it's impossible. If it were like, oh, these are the only 5 or 7 good writers in a group of a pool of 700, I mean, it probably wouldn't be very fun, let alone easier. But it's just like, it's never that. And so I do think those subjectivities, we ask them to read with those, but then they're mitigated with that discussion and consensus, arriving at a consensus, if that's helpful.
Very helpful. Thank you, Emily.
You're welcome. And also to John's point, the writers are not reading for programming. We don't have to program a season. We're investing in your voice. And so that's also important, is that's why they read so differently. And I would.
What might be helpful if you have that is that if you have one other type of work, because there are 2 things that we get to look at and weigh, then that might be a good thing. Like you could then, if you have the libretto and you have another type of writing, that might be, it gives people then a chance to see 2 different sides to your work. But, just really go with your gut and your heart.
Thanks, Corey. Hector. Is your hand up, Hector? I see a hand. Maybe that's go for it.
Oh, hi. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Emily and Connie and everyone else participating. I just, 2-part question, if I may. Number one is, in terms of the content, I think I know the answer, but would you recommend, given the climate that we're in, any political plays, or would you discourage those? That's one. But my most important question is about the residency itself. If invited to a residency, how I read through other stuff on the website, but I guess I'm just gonna go straight to the point with my question. While of course playwriting is my life, do you think I would still be able to hold a job? I do have another passion, which is education. Would I still be able to teach, or would I have to commit fully to the residency? Thank you.
Thank you, Hector. Corey, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 7-year residency and you have to live and you have to pay your rent, maybe, or feed yourself and whatever. So I would say, yes, you can keep your job. I mean, however you write now, that's how you will write. You write when you have the time to write. I mean, I've gone through different phases in my life. I mean, I remember there was one point when I had a full-time job that was really demanding, and I just had like a few hours every weekend to write. And then there's times when I have, weeks and weeks and weeks of time to write. So, you definitely can continue your life in whatever it is you do.
Thank you. And also, just to put a finer point on that, Hector, if I'm hearing the kind of question under your question, this isn't a live-in residency. It's an artistic residency. It's 7 years, and you use the time and the resources as you need to support your work, right? It's not in place of, it's kind of enhancement of, if that makes sense. Right. We meet people where they are, and they're in very different stages of their career or their processes. And we, try to respond to each person where they are and support you on those terms. Yeah.
Perfect. That's very helpful. Thank you. How about the political question?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If that's what you write, that's what you write. Again, there's no restrictions on content here. Again, because you're applying for a residency that ultimately you set the terms of engagement. It's not programming, we're not producers, we do advocate for your work, but yeah, go for it. If that's what you're writing, that's what we would be supporting. Yeah.
Okay. And one last thing, a little bit more about the residency. So if I needed a space, time, let's say over the weekend, throughout the course of the 7 years or what have you, that's how I would decide how to best use that. Is that accurate?
Yes. I mean, if that's so right now, because we're in a leased space, we don't have our own home, we're kind of in between homes and moving towards a more permanent home, but we're in an interim space called Houghton Hall Arts Community, which is wonderful. But we set hours because we're leasing the space, and so we have set hours, but I think if you came in and that's what you would need, that would precipitate a conversation about what kind of flexibility we might find in our space to accommodate someone who has weekend time only,
Thank you so much. How lovely.
Yeah. Thank you, Hector. Okay.
Appreciate you.
Is Garrett next? I think. Oh, I see your hand too, Reginald. Let me go with Garrett and then we'll swing back to you, okay?
Hello, thanks for taking my question. Could you just give, and if it's coming up still in the video, that's fine. But could you give just a brief description of what the first year might look like for people who are accepted in? I know it's not like a full-time thing, but I just want to like be as prepared as possible for the time commitment. Thank you.
John, do you want to go ahead and answer that?
Sure. Again, we basically respond to your needs and what you want to do. So, some writers actually come in and they have these projects they want to work on, and so immediately we have a conversation. We schedule, some sort of a workshop or, workshop or reading or whatever it is that you're interested in doing. So it's not like a school. It's not like a training program. It's not like there's steps that you do. It really is it depends upon what it is you're interested in working on and what it is you're looking to do. We have those conversations and then we schedule whatever we need to. We'll assist with collaborators and that sort of thing. So, I mean, that's the thing, is that we are really responsive to what it is you would like to do. What we say is bring in your curiosities, bring in your questions, and we will work with you to sort of work things out and sort of along with that question that you have, Garrett, just responding to Hector's question too. One of our writers is a social worker. One of our writers who just finished has full-time job as a UC, not UCLA. He works full-time. He has a number of our writers have full-time jobs. A number of our writers are teachers. Some of our writers who are not in New York are professors. They work at universities. We work around their schedule. So it's like if you have time off at the end of your schedule, or if there's a spring break or, the holiday break or something like that, we also try to actually work with those schedules to support the writers. And so we're pretty flexible that way. So you should that's actually how we're able to sort of support the writers where they are. And then sometimes those circumstances will change over time, but we do the best that we can to actually support you where you are.
Essentially, you'll lead us in your first year. You're like, this is what you know what I mean? It's sort of who's the driver? And in some way, the writers are the drivers. I mean, we have limits. Let's be real, in terms of human capacity. We have an 8-person staff, and but I think it's the question, to John's point, whenever the new cohort comes in, we orient them as a group. The staff meets with them as a group, and then we meet with each individual person, and you sort of, as John said, you kind of like unpack your ambitions and goals, and then we try to figure out how to put some resources to those that dreaming, the dreaming that you do out loud with us. And so you drive that process essentially. And we can't do everything, but we'll do our best to find some ways within whatever you're juggling to find ways to support your endeavors. Is that good?
Solid. Thank you very much. I
You're very
appreciate
welcome.
all this.
Sure. Go, Reginald. Thank you.
Yes, I was just asking, does the New Dramatists have a commitment to DEI when it comes to BIPOC and LGBTQ plus writers?
We do. We have a mission and value statement that's on our website. We have an EDAI. We had a task force that helped us draft that. We're now in a process of a code of community. It's a diverse community. But yeah, our commitment is to writers who write and as creating as diverse a community as possible. Corey, do you want to speak to that too, just as?
Yeah, and I mean, for instance, the writers that are on the selection committee, the writers that are chosen, the writers that are residents are, the entire spectrum of human beings, I think. So there is no bias or, or certain types of, there's a word that starts with the D that I'm trying to think of.
Discrimination.
Yeah, discrimination.
Discrimination or anything that happens, based on anything like that I can, yeah, so.
Is there any more to that you need or want to hear, Reginald? I just want to make sure.
I just wanted to know, as a out Black gay man, a lot of my materials have gay characters and
don't worry about
gay focuses. So I just want to know whether when you talk about what represents me and what's my strongest work, I want to see was I cutting off my nose to spite my face if I sent in something that was particularly LGBTQ.
Yeah. No, bring it on. I mean, again, if that's what you're doing, that's what we want to meet and that's what we would want to support, And I think, again, we don't have to program a season. We don't have to, we do have audiences, but audiences are also built organically around the work that you're making. Not every reading or creative iteration that you might undertake or working session is open. You can work in a closed space and you open it up when you want audience to participate in your developmental process, because you're going to learn how your work is hitting an audience, and that's going to help you continue to write it. But yeah, so just to make that clear again, the artists lead the way, and I think we respond to that, if that's helpful.
I did put our EDA, a link to our
you.
EDAI statement in the chat if you'd like to read it full. You can also get to it from the application page.
Yeah.
And I also think if you just look at who our residents are and look at who our alums are, you'll see a really diverse group of writers. You'll just see historically we've actually supported very, very diverse writers over the decades. So feel free to do that as well.
Alicia, maybe, okay, we're at 5:04. Alicia, I just want to be sensitive to people's time. Go ahead, Alicia.
Okay. I think some of this you did already kind of refer to. I was curious about some of the people in the past, some of your current dramatists, how they have structured their residencies, especially given that, you're responsive to their needs. And so how are some of them approaching their work, if you're able to share, if you're free to share?
Sure. Corey, would you want to speak from your own experience?
I mean, I think that there are different types of workshops and readings, which John can go over. And so, you're sort of entitled. You can't have a reading every week that are good. That's going to be, housed with actors and director or whatever. So, I mean, I think what you will decide what it is you want to work on first. And then that's the first thing that you'll, give some time to. And at that point, you'll decide if it's going to be just a quick like rehearsal or cold reading, or it's like a 3-day workshop or whatever it is. There are different types of things that are supported. So it's kind of based on what it is you feel you want to work on.
No, I understand that part. I think that much was clear. I'm just curious about like what some of your other residents or your other dramatists have done. Like, how did they hit the ground running? What did they go with first? Did they want to work with a dramaturg first? Did they want to do research first? Did you connect them with someone to help them with their historical, research and things of that nature? Like, I'm just curious if you can share whatever you're free and allowed to talk about, how some of them approached theirs when they came in to the program.
I think it's so wide ranging. That's the thing. There is no answer, because I think it's based on what it is you're working on and what you want to work with. So if you want to work with, if you've got a piece that you're really like dying to work on and you need a dramaturg to work with, then that's what you'll bring to John and Emily, and they'll find a dramaturg that will work with you. Or if you prefer to hear the play out loud and you want actors to read it out loud, that's what they'll find for you. So it's really going to be driven. And we've seen everything. I mean, there have been people who've written with the actors in the room and they haven't even written it yet. Or there have been people who want to research, or I mean, so there's just so many different, wide ranges of what you hit the ground running doing. And it's really based on your time. And I think what it is you feel you need to support the work that you're working on. So I would just pick something that's really close to your heart that you really want to work on first. Focus on that, what you think that needs to move it forward, and then pick the next thing after that. If that makes sense, if that answers.
Appreciate it.
That's exactly right. It really does. It's wide ranging. It really is varies. So just give you one example. One of our new writers, in her first year, the first workshop she wanted to do was a piece that involved commedia, masks, and puppets. And so that was her workshop. She brought in, I think it was a company of like 10 or 12 actors. And they spent 2 days working on just sort of developing this piece, continuing the piece. So it all varies. Everything is whatever the writers are interested in working on, we do our best to actually support and facilitate it.
I'll give you another example too. Thank you both for that, because that's super helpful. But Alicia, I think even just to illustrate further how, when you have access to time, space, a community of peer writers, an extended community of artistic collaborators, like I think like the encouragement is to think expansively about what you need as a generator of new work. Okay. And sometimes that looks like a reading, and sometimes it looks like finding the right collaborators to give voice to what you're doing. Right. And I think that goes back to Reginald's question too, that, our incredible community of artistic collaborators just expands because writers will often introduce us to their collaborators, and then they become part of this, again, ever expanding community of artistic collaborators. But the other thing is that some people come in here and not because they need to develop work, but because they want to build community. Because again, time, space, artists, New York City, whatever. We have one writer who doesn't use New Dramatists necessarily as a place to develop or read their work. Their articulated goal to us was that they wanted to convene a community of South Asian artists, right? To either, to meet them or to expand that community of theater makers, but also even beyond that. That's what they want to use New Dramatists for. Now, they might do a reading and they might do playtime, but their goal is to really catalyze and build community of South Asian artists around their own work and the work of their fellow South Asian playwrights. And so that's what their endeavor is. And we can meet that where that is. Kia Corthron, and I'll just use her name because she's now an alum. It was similar at the time of her residency. She had many commissions that came with developmental resources. So she didn't do a reading at New Dramatists until her final year, at her 7th year of residency. And it was a play that she was having produced at Actors Theater of Louisville, wanted to do the workshop in New York because her director and most of her actors were from New York. So we hosted that reading with Actors Theater of Louisville. But what she did for that 7 years was show up for other people's work. She was on the what was called the Writers Executive Committee, which Corey was as well. It's a volunteer group of writers to whom staff will bring questions about distribution of resources or programming, questions that we need their perspective on. So they essentially represent the collective interests of the company of playwrights. And Kia was very involved in that and mentoring other writers. So that's how she used her residency time. So I also want to encourage the people that are still here with us to also think really expansively about what are the different ways that you as an artist would want to engage time, space, community. You know, there are other ways to do that. And also I will just mention, because when Corey introduced herself, I mentioned that she was a board member. 4 members of our Writers Executive Committee also sit on our board of directors. And it's a way to try to keep all of the kind of components of New Dramatists, the staff, the playwright company, and the board in conversation with each other. So that's another way that many writers are engaged, especially ones who are self-producing or wanting to become, you know, artistic producers of their own or other people's work. Being on the board is a great learning curve and experience. So.
Thank you for that. That was very helpful. Thank you both.
You're welcome, Alicia. Hector, is your hand up? But yep.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much. I'll be brief. I understand we're crunched with time. I was reflecting on as to whether there might be some mistakes that you could speak to about the playwright's process that you may be aware of. And also, speaking of process, I suspect that if invited, and this sounds like a dream, one of the plays that I will submit would be a play that I would want to work on in the residency. Because while I love that play, it's very dear to my heart. I realize that there are some flaws in it, and I'd like to have it worked on with professionals. And maybe that's why it's currently not a strong piece. But so in terms of mistakes, do you think, would you be able to speak to the fact that while it's not a work in progress, it's a completed work, would you say that it is a mistake to submit plays with, for example, the play that I'm thinking of includes technical challenges? I don't know if that could sway some people away from a piece because of the technical difficulties, like how the hell we're going to do this on stage kind of question.
Corey, did you unmute?
I would say no. I mean, that wouldn't be something that would ever sway me, because I mean, I'm curious to see how somebody's going to solve that issue. But I would say that if you feel that a play is not your strongest piece, then I don't know that I would use that as a play to submit. Mm-hmm. So that's the only thing I would say is I would say the plays that you think represent you at your strongest and clearest, where you feel your voice is clearest, it's saying what you want to say the way you want to say it, then I would say those are the plays to use to submit with. But this other play might be one that you might want to work with, you know, in the beginning. That might be the one that is the most important for you to try to work on. So, you know, that's the only thing I would say.
Yeah,
can I just add one thing, Hector?
Yes,
I'm sorry,
yes.
I'm cutting you off, but I do, because I think what Corey's saying, like, I feel like what you're going to submit are your calling card plays. Like, hello, this is who I am, this is my voice, this is what I'm excited about. Because the committee are picking writers, they're not picking plays. And I don't know if that's something I'm just maybe intuiting from your question, but once you're in, you can work on whatever you want, anything in progress. And if that's helpful, they're not picking a play to then decide that should be workshopped, right? They're picking writers who then lead their own developmental process, if that's helpful. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I cut you off though.
no, you didn't. No, not at all. That's very helpful. I happen to suspect that that play that I will submit is where I am. It's like you said, is my voice, but it needs help, and that's why I'm putting it out there. I put it out there before, and it hasn't been graced very well. I think because of that technical difficulty. I had that idea years ago. Oh, this would be great, but I don't know how it could be solved in the theater. I think it's theatrical, but I do not know. I think it's doable. So like Corey said, I think one question in the theater always is, how we're going to solve this? We're presented with a challenge here. How are we going to solve this? So I think it's worth because theater asks good questions. So I think that is a good question. How are we going to solve this? If this is a problem that we're having in society, then how are we going to solve it in the theater? That kind of thing. So that's why I keep pushing that one. But I think sometimes it is expected that full-blown product with less difficulty as possible is preferred, if that makes any sense.
Well, we're not producing those,
Yeah.
so you don't need to worry about if it's difficult or how are we going to solve, because that's not what we're going to be reading it, thinking about. We're just reading it to say, do we understand this story? Do we get this story? Do we feel, for these characters? And that's it, really. It's not how are they going to do it? Because that's not our problem.
Yeah. Right.
Let them
Yeah.
figure it out when it's done. So I think just send the play that you feel speaks to from your heart, that is your heart speaking. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is that if you're not chosen the first round, you can always reapply again another year. I mean, I was in the double digits of applying when I got chosen. So yeah. I'm just saying, just keep trying. As Emily said, it's always a new committee. It's a totally new committee. So your chances go back to zero. I mean, I even start to trick the group where sometimes I'd send the same exact plays and whatever. And then one time I'd be a finalist and the next time I'd be, it'd be the first round and whatever. So there's just no, there's no rules to the whole thing. You just have to go kind of by your gut and your heart and, just trust that you'll be received, with an open heart and open mind.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. That means a lot.
Thank you, Hector. And I will raise an example that sort of speaks to your question and also Alicia's, and this is for everyone. Yeah, and I don't know if this occurred to you, John, but there was a writer who wrote a play about Bluebeard, and the dark story and then there's a closet full of unfortunately women's body parts, right? that are animated in the play because they're telling the story of how they ended up in the kind of seduced by Bluebeard in the closet. And one of the things that this writer did was convened a group of designers, I think, and John, please correct me, that he read the play to them, and then they discussed different ways that they could foresee doing that play, right? With sound, with set, with costumes. So that's to your point, your question, Alicia, and to anyone who's asking, that is a way of using the resources, is to actually make those queries about well, how would I do this? And who are the people that can help you think about and answer that question? So he had a group of designers come in and basically reflect what they thought or felt about different ideas of how that could do. So John, is that accurate? Do you want to take that on a little
No,
bit?
that's exactly right. Although he didn't read it, we actually cast it. So we actually had 8 women on stage who read the play, and as Emily said, his audience was only designers. The sole purpose of this was not to work on the text. It was actually to have a conversation with designers about how would you represent 8, basically various body parts, a head, somebody representing a head, a shoulder, a mid, a torso, whatever. How would you actually do that on stage? And that was the conversation.
Thank you, John.
Yes, thank you. Those are the conversations I want to have.
I mean, yeah, to sit with a bunch of designers, and it's really about what's possible, right?
Yeah.
I think we focus a lot on what isn't, but there's a lot that is. And sometimes that's where you need people to think with you. And that's always what is asked. Who do you need to think about this piece with?
Yeah, because
The designers were really excited. I mean, this was really exciting for them too, to sort of have this conversation and be invited into the process at that stage. So it was a win-win for everybody.
yes, because as a true collaboration, if I may add this, so I'm responsible for the dialogue and I set up the scene, but there are the designers who have to worry about designing, and then the costume designers, and then the others. So, and then that's theater. It's a true collaboration in its very essence. So, like I said, I put in the words, and the others, uh, put in everything else that I didn't put in. So in some ways, well, I don't want to speak too much. I think I am a minimalist, and in terms of what I require, and then everyone else brings their vision as a theater practitioner. So that's what I try to build in the type of plays that I write. Yeah, but I'll leave it there.
Thank
I don't
you.
want. Yes,
Thank you, Hector.
thank you. Yeah, I'm so glad this organization exists. You guys are amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Pretty special. And we're thankful that all of you exist. And I would just say, we need our storytellers, we need our theater makers. So keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for that.